What's up, everyone? Welcome to Preheat's World. Back with the new season. On today's episode, we are going to make homemade beef stock. I think making stocks yourself, you just get such a better flavor than store-bought. And so beef stock is super simple. All you really need is beef, bones, and vegetables. And so really, I recently bought a quarter of a cow. So we're just going to use parts of that cow that I recently purchased. And so for the beef part of it, we're going to use some short ribs that we'll cut up. I'm going to cut off the bone of this rib steak. We're going to use a marrow bone, and we're going to use some top sirloin. And then for vegetables, we're going to use our favorite aromatics and then some herbs to finish it off. And so really what we're going to do is we're going to chop up some of this meat and the bones. We're going to put them on a sheet pan with some olive oil, and then we're going to throw them in a 425-degree oven for anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour until they get a nice caramelization on it. We're going to put it in a pot with some water, and then we're going to let it simmer for hours. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to prep the beef. And so really with these short ribs, because I'm going to use all of this, we're just going to cut these ribs into pieces, and then maybe we'll trim a little bit of the fat. We'll keep the fat. We could probably render it down and leverage that to make some beef tallow for other types of recipes, but we're not going to go crazy here. We want a little gelatinous out of our stock. And so I'll finish these up in a second. The second thing that we're going to do here is we're going to cut the bone off of this rib steak, and really I'm going to cut out this rib steak, and then we're going to make that for a different meal. And so really just there's a nice little line that you can see that we're just going to follow just to easily carve this steak away. Nice and easy all the way through to the other side. And then so we'll cut off a little bit of this fat that we'll use separately, but that'll be a nice meaty bone to leverage here. And then the last thing that we'll do is I'm going to use some of this beef tomorrow for the stew meat, but I just want to take a little bit of this top sirloin that we're going to go ahead and leverage for roasting, and the rest of this we'll chop up for stew meat a little bit later. And so really what you can see for beef, the end result is this is what's going to help flavor, our stock. And then we'll go ahead and cut up some vegetables. All right, so now that we have the beef all cut up, we're just going to give a rough chop onto some celery here. We can just slice an onion in half. You can leave the skin on there. I have a half an onion from something else I'm just going to use for this. For garlic, we're going to use that in a little bit. Carrots, again, we'll just do a nice rough chop. And you know what? Let's go ahead and get a little weird with it. And we can do some roasted garlic here as well and throw that on. Okay. All right, now the last step, we're going to throw a little olive oil on everything so it can get nice and caramelized. We're going to just do light seasoning of salt. This is the only time we're going to season anything. And then we'll do a light seasoning with some cracked pepper. Again, if you know me and my videos, this is very light seasoning-wise. We can go ahead and mix it all up here. Everything's really nice and coated in oil. Then we can go ahead and throw this in a 425-degree oven. And we'll let that go for about 45 minutes to an hour. We'll check in about 30 minutes to flip some of the meat and vegetables. All right, so we've been about 50 minutes or so. As you can see, we have really good color on all this. That's really what we want everything to look like. Get a little bit of caramelization, a little bit of color. Nothing's burnt. This looks good. We'll go ahead and put everything into the pot. All right, so now that everything's roasted And in the pot, we're just going to add a few more elements. If you want to go ahead and zoom in here, Sammy Pie, we're going to add, let's call it a little handful of peppercorns. Let's add a couple bay leaves. We're going to add fresh garlic. We have roasted garlic in there, but you can never have too much garlic. We're going to add the tops to the celery in. We're going to add all of this parsley. Very good flavor. We're going to add, let's do 3 sprigs, 4 sprigs of rosemary. And then let's do like half this bundle of thyme. And then we are simply going to just pour a bunch of water into here. A little bit more. Perfect amount. And then we're going to go ahead and just put this on the stove here. We're going to bring this up to a slight boil, pull it down to a simmer, and we're going to let this thing go for like 6 to 8 hours. And then once we're done, if you can order these on Amazon, little like quart containers, we're going to let it cool down, strain it, and then we'll put it in a bunch of quart containers. Probably get a couple of these. One we'll use for beef stew tomorrow, and the rest we'll put in the freezer. So we'll see you in several hours. At this point, we're just letting everything drain, maybe for about 10-15 minutes, just to get all the juices from out of the vegetables. But the initial broth, as you can see, has a nice, beautiful color. We'll let this all cool down, and then we'll put these in our containers, and we'll be done with our beef stock. And when we're all done, we'll have about 3 containers worth of stock. You don't want to fill all the way to the top, especially if you're going to put in the freezer, because you're going to want room for the liquid to expand. So if you like this video, please make sure to hit that subscribe button, like the video, and we'll see you next time on Kevy Eats World.